Peace, y'all. Peace, 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 peace. This fruition, the reinvention of self. I want to take, I want to take the time to break down the limits in which we place on ourselves, just from the past, the past experiences you may have dealing with, dealing with just dealing with life in no particular part of life, be it your your economical, financial situation, your relationships, particular part of it, or just your childhood and upbringing, memory of, you know, how the the environment and the circumstances in which we come up in, right? I don't want to, that's kind of easy. That's an easy colloquial, in this colloquial sense of looking at, you know, an idea in which when someone wants to reinvent themselves. Okay, I want to go a little deeper than that. The reinvention starts with the reinvention starts with the way you see the world. Okay, every decision, you have to look at it. Every decision you've made up until this point in life, right, is treated like a fork in the road. It got you exactly where you are today. I believe if we backtrack, this is a hypothesis. If we backtrack, every decision played a micro part, or micro as it may seem, played a critical part into where you are at in this present version of life as you know it right here today. Okay. With that being said, you know, your reality, our reality, the way that we see the world is as if we were looking at TV and we're the main character, or I want to say the main character, and everybody and everything is a part of your movie, right? It's starring you. Okay. So at a point in time, my personal experience, several points in time, I had to reinvent myself, right? Everyone has to go to a particular redevelopment stage, if that makes sense. And that's what I mean by the reinvention. Now, I'm not referring to uh, New Year's resolution per se, right? But that is a particular point in time in which, yearly people do self maintenance, if that makes sense, right? And I like to say that be the energy, reinvent yourself. But take the version of you today, you have to intentionally move the goalpost. Okay, not using that phrase as if changing the way that what we're talking about, but actually getting to a certain degree of progress. Now you don't get complacent with that, and you have to move the goalpost. Shed some skin. Get rid of dead weight, dead ideas. Okay, a dead frame of mind, dead memories. Okay, everything, everything that you do, everything that we do, it has to be to the good. It has to be conducive to the mission. Now, if we don't have a mission, or we lack vision, that's okay too, because we can come up with one. All right, we look at, we do some self auditing, audit self. You know, look at the point in where we started from, and how far we've gotten. You know, sometimes you get in a mode and a grind, and you just grinding, and you don't really even get up to, lift your head up to kind of smell, the coffee, and or smell the flowers, right? It's, you're human. We get caught up into that, right? But along the way, we have to move the goalposts. You have to move the goalposts, further, or more, challenge yourself in maybe different ways. And this can be, it doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be the same way that everyone else is doing, like in the social media world, right? Whereas though it's easy to take on a notion that we all have to do the same thing, or we all have to be good at the same thing, or we all have the same dream. That's in the loop. That's being in the loop. Me today, I'll tell you, I don't want to be in the loop. I want to be outside of the loop. You know, create your own loop. That's what I'm referring to. So if under the mindset that this is my movie, and under the mindset that it's starring me, and in the mindset that everything that's happening in this environment, on the wake up, is a part of my movie that I'm creating. You're the producer. You're the editor. You're the main character. It's your movie, and have everything work for you. That's mastermind. And we can grow consciously, just keeping that in mind, that I'm not really affected by someone else's idea of me. They don't qualify me. They don't put limit. We accept limits placed on us by, maybe, like I said, your past experiences with life. We don't have to break everything down, just with life. But in a minute, when you change your mind, just sit still and really just think about what it is that's taking place daily with you. You'll understand that a lot of limits is just, fear based. And then I just was talking about that. The fear based limits that you place on yourself is something that hasn't happened. You're afraid of something that didn't even take place. It's sort of a defense mechanism. The brain is trying to save you. It's like your brain is working. You're a head case. You're afraid, right? And it's not even that you're afraid of nothing real. Death is real. And I say embrace death. Like, death is the truth. We don't want to fear death, something that's promised to you, right? So a lot of times people not even fearing the real thing. We're fearing something fake because of the automatic negative thought response, right? Your automatic negative thought response says, listen, if you go, you better not go out there and you better not go out there, start your fitness journey and get eating healthy, and start running and everything. People gonna think that you're a nut, you're a Looney Tune, right? Your automatic thought, negative thoughts click in when you're thinking about going out and trying for the varsity team, right? And everybody gonna say, yo man, how you figure you can get on the court with? That's your automatic negative thoughts. You're gonna stop drinking and smoking, and that's your mindset, and you felt inspired and everything. You was motivated by something you saw on the YouTube. You was checking out fruition, and you said, man, I'm gonna go to the fitness thing. I'm gonna stop drinking and smoking. I'm gonna start me a YouTube channel. And your automatic negative thoughts say, yo, you better not. They're gonna look at you crazy down at the workplace, and all your friends gonna look at you like you think you better than, what I'm saying. That's the automatic negative thought response. Those are the limits that we place on ourselves, right? And it's based in fear, but not of nothing real. There's nothing to fear on the planet. It's nothing to fear on the planet. You understand? We have to move the goalposts. And to move the goalposts is basically saying we got to go further, press ourselves further, see how far we can go. Challenge yourself. People are afraid. People are afraid to challenge yourself. They're afraid to be uncomfortable. You're afraid to be alone. That's why you stick around them people, them folks that don't even like you. You want to feel a part of something. To reinvent yourself. It's like being in the dark. A lot of people are afraid of the dark. I used to be afraid of the dark. I embrace it now. You understand? The reinvention of self. We have two selves. You have a higher self and a lower self. Our lower self is like the ego. The higher self is the spirit. They have a job to do when they can combine and create something out of I want to say nothing, but out of source and out of spirituality, out of that blackness, and bring it into light and manifest it, and it comes to fruition. That's where, that's what this is about. And it starts, you can't really share your vision, like that. Something that you create with your mind, you can share it. Don't get me wrong, you can share it, but you don't share it by, talking it, telling somebody what it looked like. You could tell me what you see when you driving 100 miles an hour down the highway on the Autobahn, out of that Porsche, right? You could tell me what it looked like, and I'm not going to be able to see it. You could tell me the best way you could, if you was to take a photo or a video of it, right? And you said, man, this is what I created with, my idea, and I was in Germany and that you did a better job of showing me, because it was like hands-on, right? But it starts with the mind, right? And how you see your world and how you go about creating it. All right? And that's you take where you at right now. This version right here, right now, started back when. You understand? And every micro decision that was made was like a fork in the road that brought you to the present. The present's a gift, no lie. Now, we have to move the goalposts, because now, with our experiences and the information and the data, we know we got to take it further. And this video might not be for everybody. Some people, have, are complacent, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But to the ones that know it's more something else, that we're gonna pivot and go into the next chapter. I got more work to do. I got more. I see something else I can do, right? It may require, if you haven't done it, not saying if you haven't done it on this software, sometimes it requires you to reinvent yourself, especially especially in a certain demographic of men. You understand? When we're on that journey to being fulfilled in life, And through fulfillment, I don't mean in terms of whatever fulfillment is for you. You see, that's another elephant in the room. Fulfillment for me might not be fulfillment for you. And you'll know because when you're happy, like, it's a happy thing. And sometimes to get to happiness you have to reinvent yourself. Because let's say the old version of myself, right, was attached and tied to old things that are no longer conducive to, what I'm creating, the world that I'm creating, or the world that I created. Put it that way, in past tense. Certain things along my journey, along this road, was no longer conducive to the world that I've created. So we had to, whether we did it intentionally or not, the goalpost was moved, and certain adjustments had to occur. These are happenings. You understand? And you never limit yourself or put false limits on yourself, especially placed by others. Like, if you had that teacher that said, yo, you wasn't going to amount to anything in life, right? And you took that to heart, right? Or you had, someone on the playground said something to you that was like foul, or you've been through that situation that really took a lot out of you, made you restart. Restarting, a lot of people, it's uncomfortable. I had to restart a lot of times. Restart. Start a new life. Shout out Ace. She used to say, "Yo, Drew, I'm on starting up a new life." That was fire. And we used to have an inside joke and laugh about that. But that's the way it is. You have to reinvent yourself, and then create a new world. That's what God love. You have the power to create a new world as you know it. And your world and my world, we may share moments in reality, but we all got different worlds. I go back to, I go into my own. We may share a ride share. We share an Uber, and for a little point in time, we're sharing that moment, and then everybody goes back to their own world. Because to you, I'm just a part of the cast to your show, and vice versa. You understand? So never be afraid to reinvent yourself. Don't limit yourself to the current version if you see more, if you want more. If you desire more, if you're not fulfilled with the current version, higher and lower self. If I want to be at my highest version of myself. I know I can get better. You should know you can get better. It's no such thing as what your past, and that ain't that's not real anymore. What's real is what you're doing right now. Like, what could how many reps did you get in a day if you was doing the workout thing? How many drinks did you have today since you was going to stop drinking and stop smoking? How many shots did you give up today? On your journey to making varsity. How many videos did you make on your YouTube journey? It's on you. You don't have no limits. The limit is not real. We limit ourselves through the automatic negative thought responses that we place on ourselves. And then we use that as a buffer, as to make an excuse. Like, we have an excuse before said anything happened. I was just having that conversation with my kids. Like, in sports, right? It really doesn't matter with the game. Like, okay, with the game of ball, it's always going to be somebody that's faster than you, stronger than you, quicker than you, jump higher than you, and you still going to have to compete. All right? that doesn't make them better than you. And even if they're better than you, right? Who's to say you don't, you know, they don't do, you know, nobody's perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect, right? But you have to put, you know, you got to play your number, man. And you got to play your game against whoever, the world. Put your game right up against the world. Okay? Kobe came out 17 years old. LeBron at 18 years old. You know, they had the same, think about your senior varsity player. They had the same experience of time length, right? Of experience of hooping as you. What was different about them? What that allowed them to compete? It was a mindset. They weren't the best shooters. They weren't the best at anything. But what they had was the mindset that I'm going to play my number against whoever y'all got. And I'm going to play it harder. And I'm a drill just like how they drilling. You understand? And that's what it, you know, and that's what it take. They wasn't limited by what someone else thought they could do. You put somebody else's fears on you. A lot of time we do that, you know, just trusting people that we care about as having the, you know, taking them into consideration. You have to be a bit, be a bit selfish, you know, you have to be a bit selfish, you know, for lack of better words, you know, you got to be selfish and put your plan first, you know, because again, no, you can't put nobody else's plan in first because you don't know how sincere and where their heart is with their plan for you to get back. You know, this is not for everybody. Again, this is, you know, this is for the men out there, right? You have to be selfish. You have to be selfish, and you got to put your plan at the forefront. And you got to use your vision, something, and you got to trust your vision, believe in your vision, and you got to trust it because it's not even, you can't see it yet. It's here. You understand? And you got to work it. You got to put your plan and your vision against everybody's plan and everybody's vision. You got to play your number. And you got to play your number just like how LeBron and Kobe did out of high school without the experience. They were still young men. You know, very young men, 18 years old. And they had to go against the seasoned vets. And what they had, the knowledge that they had and what they did, they had to do it against the ones that was already seasoned at what they did. And they couldn't listen to the naysayers, and they couldn't believe the naysayers. They probably listened to them and heard what they said, and they had to play their number. This thing is about playing your number and upgrade when necessary. You know, reinventing self may be uncomfortable, but sometimes we just got to be uncomfortable. You know, it's like being in the dark, and you're afraid of the dark because of what? Something that you don't even know why you're afraid of the dark. People are afraid of the dark and not afraid to die. And dying is the truth. You understand? But hey, it's been truly wonderful. I hope everybody have a great everything. I'm Drew. Peace.